Let's talk tourism.
Christopher Howard is a Spanish language guru, relocation expert, and author of multiple books on both subjects. One of his books was actually the inspiration for my move to Costa Rica over 20 years ago. He's originally from California, but has called Costa Rica home for over 40 years. You can learn more about him at liveincostarica.com. Chris, let's talk tourism.
Okay, I'd like to talk about what brought me here originally.
Yeah, tell me.
What
brought you?
ignited the passion? When I was at the University of California in Los Angeles, I won a scholarship to live in Mexico for a year. And I had such a wonderful time. It completely changed my life. But I didn't want to leave. I wanted to live in Mexico starting then. But I hadn't finished college. I didn't have a way to make a living. There weren't as many opportunities then, like the internet. So I went back and finished school, eventually got a master's degree, but I got a teaching job in bilingual education. Every summer, I'd spent 3 months in Mexico, but my I was curious to see what the rest of Latin America was like. So I discovered Costa Rica and I really liked it. I started my vacation, stay longer each time. I went all over South America. Every country had something that was really unique, like Rio, Buenos Aires, Peru, Machu Picchu. But when you put everything on the table and on the scale, everything tilted in favor of Costa Rica. So I was young at the time. I was not married. I'd sold a house and had a pretty good chunk of change for those days, not a fortune. And I spoke the Spanish language. So I said, I'm moving to Costa Rica. And that's how it all started. And eventually I wrote this little pamphlet about living here. And that evolved in the late 90s into tours. And I've been doing tours of Costa Rica since 1997. I only do one every 2 months now. But I pack them and meet a lot of great people. And it's a very rewarding experience. I make money, but I really help people change their lives by moving here.
Geez, so when I met you back in probably 98, you had really only just started all of your writing and relocation stuff.
I started the writing about 10 years, but in 1988, I started the writing. But in 97 and in 97, I started the tours. And I've gone through different stages with the tours. It's like, I've tweaked them, changed the itinerary, listened to feedback from my clients. And a couple people tried to copy me. I think they're on the wayside now. But yeah, it's been good. I enjoy doing it. And I'm providing a service for people. And I have if you let me say so, I have a pretty damn good customer satisfaction rate for what I do.
I always loved in the back of your books, there was a section called like people who've done it.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, someday I could be like the guy with the bagel shop living the dream in Latin America.
Well, you're one of them. You've done it.
Now, in your nearly 40 years here, certainly you've seen this developing country change a lot. What has changed the most?
Okay, when I came here in the 80s, in general, the people did not have as much as they do now. Nice cars, homes. There are hardly any American products here. But due to the fact that there's never been any strife here, and that every year, more and more Costa Ricans are getting educated, especially with the internet now and stuff. There's a pretty strong middle class and infrastructure from the U.S. This is, as one of my clients said, a very user-friendly country for Americans. We have Walmart, PriceSmart, which is sort of like Costco, and the middle class people here. I mean, by where I live, there's big developments and things. They're doing pretty well. This pandemic's kind of affecting the inflation and the consequences of the pandemic has affected people. But as a lot, as a whole, the people are a lot better off than when I moved here.
So obviously the change in a much more consumer oriented culture here is pretty noticeable.
Definitely.
And access to
Definitely.
credit, right? Access
Yep.
to home loans, car loans, even credit cards. That's changed a lot in the last 10 years. But what are
It's
the
good.
parts?
It's good and it's bad. There's a lot of credit card debt, things like that, all
Yeah.
the stuff we have in the States.
But what are the things about Costa Rica that you hope never change? What are the things that you fell in love with here initially?
Um, the tranquility. I hope that the democracy prevails. It's the longest enduring democracy in Latin America. The U.S. likes to use it as a model for other countries, showing that it's done it. If it can be done in Costa Rica, it could certainly be done in other countries, which is true in some ways. The people are really great here in general. They're very nice and friendly. That's a big plus. It's kind of hard to make good friends here because the families are much tighter than in some of the other Latin countries I've spent time in. But they're nice people. All my clients say, "Oh, the people are so nice." It's true. There's a few bad apples here and there, but every place. The lifestyle is what really, I think, attracts people, and they kind of become imbued with the lifestyle here. Just the vibe of the country, the feeling of being here. I knew one guy I was talking to who came here on a temporary job and ended up moving here. He said as soon as he got off a plane, he just felt a certain sense of peace or something that he couldn't never had in the States.
I think that's true. I mean, when you leave the country and return to Costa Rica, aren't you always glad that you're back?
Oh yeah. And when I go to the States and go into the airport, it's a completely different energy level. It's very strange. I'm a stranger in a strange land.
I don't think I've ever had a return flight here in 23, 24 years where I wasn't thrilled to be coming back to this airport.
Yeah, it's very uplifting. As soon as you get in that airport, and you know what I mean, you've experienced.
I know exactly what I mean. It's one of those things that's hard to describe. Now,
Yes.
when you're leading your relocation tours, I'm sure a lot of people come in with wild misconceptions, including that this is an island. What are the first myths that you need to dispel?
Um, it's everybody, some people are interested in buying homes and stuff. Oh, say I want a house overlooking the beach with a waterfall or a river or something. They have to adjust their preconceptions to the reality of the country. Yeah, they can find something like they're looking for, but maybe not exactly what they want. But there's a lot of happy campers who have moved here. That's the main thing. People just, if you've never been to a place, you kind of have an image of what it'll be like, and they have to adjust it. Now, what the curious thing is that 40% of the people who move here, try to come here and live, Americans, Canadians, end up going back. Why? Maybe they had unrealistic expectations. Step off a plane, you're in paradise. A lot of them are like in their 50s, 60s, health issues, maybe. The healthcare is good, but they might feel better going to the States. Grandchildren, that makes them go back. The language can be stifling for some people, although every year, Costa Ricans are very highly educated people. More and more people speak English, especially the young people, because like my son, you get really good jobs here if you're bilingual. Amazon has 7,000 people working in their call center in Costa Rica. So the people have I think, unrealistic expectation. They think their problems were going to go away here. You bring your problems and baggage with you. So that's where 40% go back. But I tell people, when you're living in the States, how many moves did you make during your lifetime? So if it doesn't turn out, it's just like a different move you made and it didn't work out.
Over all these years that you've been doing these tours, has the profile of who's contacting you changing?
Um,
Or
not,
or their reasons for why?
no, not really. But now it seems, I'm gonna take a sip of water really quick. It seems that due to the political division and other forms of chaos in the US, and you're getting a lot of people who are dissatisfied with life there, the Gus shootings, things like that,
Mhm.
and looking for an alternative. And in Costa Rica, I think out of all the countries in Latin America is probably the most user-friendly country for Americans. We fit in better here because Americans have been coming here since the 50s, not as many as that started to come in the 90s and the baby boomers, the 2000s, all that. But it's an easy country with the right attitude for an American to live, no matter what their age is.
And what's the number one question you get from people? What's the
Oh
biggest
boy.
thing? Is it cost of living? Is it safety? I mean, what are people dying to know?
Not so much safety, although they remark about the barbed wire they see on homes. But I explained that there's no country that's crime free. All right. Theft is probably the biggest crime here, and not all people that get are victims are Americans. It's I feel a lot safer here than in the US. In terms of firearms, you can only own 3 handguns here, no military weapons. Getting back to the question, they like the cost of living. They ask questions about the medical system, and just about living here, what it's like. Although, my experience is a little different than the average person who moves here because I really immersed in the language and the culture and the people. So I see a little differently. I can explain it to them, and they maybe because they don't speak the language or something, understand it as deeply as I do. But I know a lot of happy people have moved here. I really do.
Can you, when you're doing a tour, when you're meeting somebody who's considering moving here, do you know pretty quickly whether or not they're going to make it?
I pretty much know, due to their level of enthusiasm, who will move here, and I can tell if somebody's not going to be able to handle it here.
And what are the dead giveaways?
Kind of really aggressive and not laid back. They not having patience. You got to have a lot of patience here. Type A type people, and maybe. Well, most people have traveled and lived abroad, so that doesn't seem to be that much of an issue. But like one lady in a tour said, her husband said he wanted to move here. They were in their early 70s. I remember she said, I'd move here, but it looks too poor, which, you can go through some poor neighborhoods here. It's not the US. The average, suburb in Holden is a lot different than here. So
are there any geographies that tend to do better than others? Meaning Northern
areas?
California, yeah, like Northern California folks maybe fit in
it's funny. Listen, this is very funny. You'd think all the people that move here would be coming from Minnesota, Canada. All these places are really cold, but the majority of the people come from California, Texas, and Florida, about 80%.
Yeah, well, those are big states.
Warm places.
And at least in the case of Florida, if you've lived in Florida, you're already kind of used to a tropicalized mentality.
And the rainstorms.
Yeah, and also just in terms of Latino immigration, if you've lived in Texas or lived in Florida or Southern California, you're kind of used to living next to a lot of Latinos.
Yeah.
What's the cheat sheet? Like if you're just going to give the 10-point pros and cons list of why you would or would not live here. Yeah.
For living here, I would say the weather, especially in Central Valley, it's probably one of the best climates in the world. About 72 degrees during the day. My house, I have no air conditioning or heat. I sit in my house sometimes working, And I don't even realize it's hot out, like the ceramic tile floors keep it cool. So weather, definitely a plus. Adaptability with the right attitude and making an effort to get out and immerse yourself in the culture and activities. As I said, user friendly for Americans. The lifestyle, there's tons of outdoor activities here. Bird watching. There's actually, the bird watching isn't as much as it used to be, like foreigners coming in. The Costa Ricans have bird watching clubs. So every year there's more things to do. We don't have snow skiing, obviously, but hiking clubs. There's almost any activity you want to stay busy and happy if you get off the couch. So that's another thing that's good for Americans. Americans are liked here and we feel at home. There's really not any rampant anti-Americanism. Maybe some of the people are jealous of our material wealth, but those are the things that attract people here. I mean, in the country's reputation. I mean, if you do the right things here, some people get into trouble because they don't follow the time-tested advice. The internet's good, but there's so much stuff on it. I mean, they have all these chat groups and things. You can learn some things, but you don't know who you're dealing with. There's a lot of toxic people in it. So you don't want to get involved with those kind of people. You want to look for positive people who have lived here, who've had experience, okay, dealing with the people.
Yeah, why are the expat Facebook groups so nasty?
I don't know. It's really weird. Well, everybody getting there. As a friend of mine, I don't participate really much. My friend of mine does. He's a realtor. He says they're just unhappy people who bring, and it's their 5 minutes of fame, and they're anonymous. You know what I mean? And they can vent all their frustration. But I mean, there's things like expats in Costa Rica. There's some good things you can learn, but I think it's best to take a lot of this stuff with a grain of salt and put yourself in the hands of people who've been here and can guide you in the right direction. That's what I try to do. I have nothing to gain by giving false information.
I think the old "you get what you pay for" rings true when it comes to free advice on the internet.
Yeah, I really do.
Are you seeing any more of this? Are you seeing any of this digital nomad thing where, it used to be?
Okay, the government passed it. I've read articles online. Have you read the requirement? There's a lot of requirements there. I mean, you've got to have, I think.
But forgetting the requirements for a second.
Have I seen people?
Yeah,
I haven't seen any.
No,
Maybe
what I wanted to ask you is this. Back in the old days, and by old days, I mean even, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, time's moving pretty quickly these days. Moving abroad was a big, scary deal. You kind of like, what will I do for work? How will I make friends? Well, now that you can kind of work from anywhere in most digital jobs, and now that you can even work in remote places like the beach or the rainforest,
yes.
Are you seeing a younger demographic or a different demographic who may not be thinking so much about a permanent and scary move, but maybe I want to live there part of the time? Are you seeing any of that?
I've heard about it and I've read about it. And in La Nación, the Spanish newspaper here, I've seen interviews, but I don't think there's tons of people flocking here to do it. They're the younger people, obviously, but I've seen a couple articles with the families, who came down to do it. And as with the internet, and if you can work remotely, it's an activity that lends itself to living here. Now, the other thing is the government, I want to mention, is they promised a new immigration law where they're going to grant all these exonerations and everything. And all these people on the tour that I get say, oh, when can we get these discounts? And I said, it has not been approved and it may never be approved. They had a law like that up to 1992 and it was abolished because Constitutionally, it gave foreigners more rights than Costa Ricans.
Mhm.
So this law, although it's proposed, I'd say don't hold your breath. And there are some catches. Yet, according to the law, you can bring in an automobile tax-free, but only you can use it and your wife can use it. Nobody else can use it. Somebody else uses it, you end up getting it confiscated and pay the taxes. And then when you have to sell it, you have to sell it to another pensionado. So the law looks good if it ever happens, but there are some catches.
You know, one of the, again, I'm sure there's sort of a curve that they show you when you're going to study abroad or move abroad, where you go through, wow, everything's awesome. And then you go through, oh, everything here sucks. And then pretty soon you kind of balance out and you decide if you like it or not. And tell me if this is true for you. But when I first got here, like, man, everything moves so slow, slow. And then as you get older, you're like, at least in regards to things like legislation, it's kind of nice that it moves slow, because at least then the terrible ideas don't make it through the snake very fast either.
Yeah, that's true to some extent.
You know, in regards to things like development, you know, approvals for mass development or hotels or larger houses, it's kept things from moving at a ridiculous pace, at an unsustainable pace.
There has been developments in a lot of areas. Guanacaste had a boom, then it died down, and now it's supposedly booming again up there. I don't go up there that much, but it's a little isolated. Well, look at the Central Valley, all the new high rises and things. There is development. It's changed.
But it never goes at sort of that, you know, Mexico City or Panama City, Panama pace. You know, things.
No.
Costa Rican.
It's kind of still laid back in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
You know.
You didn't give me your cons list. You know, what's the hardest part about living here, or what frustrates people the most, or what in the end might.
Well, it depends where you live. If you're in San Jose and you're out in the rush hour, I mean, the traffic's horrendous. As I mentioned, the country's developed more, so people can buy cars. So the infrastructure hasn't caught up. It is catching up. They're finishing a beltway around the city. There's plans to have a light rail put in. So the cons can be, if you're in the metropolitan area, it can be pretty hectic. Other cons, well, some people, you know, if they're on a low pension, they complain about the cost, you know, because everything's imported. Automobiles, for example, but you don't really need a car. The buses are good and Uber's good and all that. There's not that many. As I tell my clients, the worst things here are far better than the worst things in the US. You know, it's there's nothing here really I think's bad. I mean, unless if you hang out, get involved with the wrong people, I mean, that's a con. There's a group, you know, there's some of the Americans who moved down here are really misfits. They don't usually last long. They're toxic. I hate to use that word.
What's the old expression we used to say? It's a sunny place for shady people. And or it's the home of the wanted and the unwanted.
And the most unwanted. Yeah,
right.
There's a few, but
it's not as bad as it used to be, though. Don't you think a lot of the gray area crime seems to have moved on to cheaper locales?
Yeah.
You've been here for 40 years. Are you happy with your decision?
As I told you before we went on the air, I feel blessed. You know, you make decisions in life. I followed my heart because I'd studied and been in Latin America a lot. And I feel truly blessed. Every day is a gift here. I've had a great life, really good life, and good experiences. I would have never had the life I have here if I'd have stayed in the States.
Last question. It's the metaphysical question. What's your personal definition of Pura Vida?
I would say living life to its fulfillment. Simple, simplicity, just a level of enjoyment. And it's every place. I mean, you talk to somebody, I say, "Geez, I'll see you tomorrow. Pura vida." You know what I mean? It's just a great national motto, and it's a feeling. If you've been here and you kind of relax and smell the roses and feel the country, that's what Pura vida is. And I think that most Costa Ricans, I mean, they have even the ones who don't have a lot of money, they have a better lifestyle than a lot of people in the States. That's pura vida.
Chris, I always love chatting with you. And as I said, it's no exaggeration to say that one of your books was had a major impact in my decision to move here, and I couldn't be any happier.
Thank you.
So
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, if anyone's serious about moving to Costa Rica and wants to get a realistic taste test, Chris is your man. Thank you so much. Let's talk again soon.
Yes, hopefully, Casey.
Yeah, let's get lunch, man.
I'm ready.
All right, ciao.
Let's talk tourism.